Corbett Thompson here for the King James Radio Network at jamesisking.com. And of course, it was established back in 2011. So glad you're here for another edition of Sports in the Spirit, where we integrate a little bit of sports with a little bit of scripture. And it doesn't matter if it's high school, college, youth, whatever level it might be, professional, whatever level it is. There's a scripture that we try to match with it. And so this will be no different. And so what I wanted to talk about today, I call this, the first part of this is, it's just a game. That's what I call it. And there is going to be a spin-off of this video where I'm going to do another video that spins off of this one. It won't talk about the exact same thing. It's just going to be a spin-off of one of the topics I cover in this part here. So we'll cover that later. But for now, I want to read to you Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, which is from my men's Bible here. Ephesians 6 verse 4 says, "And now a word to you fathers. Don't make your children angry by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction approved by the Lord." And so there's two things here in this verse that I want to highlight. The first one is, don't make your children angry. Highlight that. And then the other part you highlight is instruction approved by the Lord. So the instruction that you give to your children can't be just any old thing. It has to be something that is approved by God. So now let's get into our news story, our topic. I came across this on Instagram. In Pennsylvania, high school football coach. And his name, I apologize if I mispronounce his name, but Stephen Sedes, could be Sedesi, but Stephen Sedes. I'm going with the two S's. Anyway, he was the head coach at Williams Valley in Pennsylvania. The Williams Valley football team. They were losing a game 43-29. They went on to lose the game. But in the process, a couple of his players committed unsportsmanlike conduct type penalties. They just, weren't acting right. And so for the next game, he benched those players in the first half of the game. And the parents took this, some kind of way, and ultimately it got escalated to the point where they were threatening him, and they vandalized his father's car. His father was also on the coaching staff. Vandalized his father's car, slashed his tires. They wrote derogatory messages on a billboard, this whole thing. And it prompted the coach to resign. He also felt that he wasn't getting the support he wanted from the administration at the school. So through all that together, he ended up resigning and leaving the team. Now, Williams Valley has won the 3 games that they have played since then in convincing fashion. But the point of it is, it doesn't matter if they go on to win the Super Bowl. The parents were seriously in the wrong and should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for what they did. But that's not the main point of my message here. The main point goes back to what I said in Ephesians 6:4 about parents not provoking your children. Now, when you read that, I think initially about directly provoking your children, like yelling at your children and provoking them to anger, which is one part. But the part I'm going to talk about here is the indirect part, where as parents, we often indirectly provoke our children to anger. And in this case, threatening the coach, slashing tires and doing all these different things, you are provoking your children indirectly to be as angry as you are. And you're teaching your children, oh, I see dad do it. It must be okay for me. And so what do you think your children are going to do when they have their children? Go around slashing tires and whatever else, unless miraculously they learn from the father's mistakes and don't do those things. So there's an indirect to provoking your kids to anger. And, as the older generation, we've led our kids down this rabbit hole of anger and rage that they're going to end up suffering for in the long run. Even after we're dead and gone, they're going to be the ones that are left with this, this anger and this bitterness and whatever. And, there's all kinds of historical examples in the Bible on these types of things as fathers and sons and all that. I don't have time to get into all that, but that was just something I wanted to throw out there. The other thing I wanted to throw out there, this happened in New Jersey not too long ago. I'm sure a lot of people that follow high school sports in New Jersey, they heard about the wrestler, Anthony Knox, that went into the stands as his father, got into a fight with some people over some racist slurs and things like that. And the father got into a fight with people in the stands, and the son, Anthony Jr., went in to defend his father and started throwing punches, and he ended up getting disqualified as a wrestler from competition and that kind of thing. But it all starts, like in Ephesians 6:4, with the father. It all starts there. As the father, you cannot allow yourself, and again, I'm speaking to me too, because I have my own crosses to bear with that. But as the father, you cannot allow yourself to get tangled up in nonsense, and not only do you suffer for it, but your kids suffer for it. The kid, you got charged with battery, right? And so nobody wins. Nobody wins when it comes to that. So anyway, that's just a little bit of what I wanted to say on this part of Sports in the Spirit about, provoking your kids to anger. And this in the indirect way of teaching your kids. When I say provoking, I mean teaching your kids to be as angry as you are. Now we're going to talk about the other part of provoking in the next video. We're going to talk about the other part of provoking, which is direct. When you yell at your kid, or you cuss your kid out, or whatever it is, And again, I'm guilty of that, and we're going to talk about a little bit about that in the next part. So with that, Corbett Thompson, Sports in the Spirit on the King James Radio Network. Goodbye, Godspeed. Thank you for watching here and listening, and I'll talk to you again soon. All right, bye bye.